In this video, I'm going to walk through the radiator replacement in a 2006 Toyota Sienna 3.3 liter engine. As you can see, my radiator sprung a leak. There was liquid dripping out the bottom. Near the bottom of the radiator, you can see this wet area. On the plastic shield underneath the car. Looking more closely at the radiator itself, you can see a discolored spot indicating the approximate location of where the leak occurred. In order to remove the old radiator, use a 10mm socket to remove the front panel, and then use a flat-bladed screwdriver to remove the plastic panel on the front as well. Use a 10mm socket or wrench to remove the hood latch. And then there are a couple of 10mm bolts in the front of the metal panel as well. Remove those. Then remove the plastic tabs from the hood latch. Looking through the front grille of the vehicle, there's a 10mm bolt that can be removed. Remove that with a wrench or a socket. And there's another plastic tab that can be removed with a flat-bladed screwdriver. At this point, everything is pretty much loose. There's a cord there that should be popped up with a screwdriver or prying tool. And then disconnect the horn connectors. I believe there's a total of 3 electrical connections that should all be removed. Sometimes pressing those tabs down with a screwdriver helps. Remove the plastic tab from the support bar. Next, you can remove the air hose going to the air filter. That just pulls out of the air box. Wiggle that until it comes out. Then remove the 2 12mm bolts from the top of the radiator. And the 2 10mm bolts. Now it's held on by 2 rusty Phillips head screws. These have a tendency to be stripped. Might help to put a little bit of penetrating oil on these. And then use a Phillips screwdriver to remove them. I managed to strip the screw on the passenger side, so we'll just move on. Next, use a 10mm socket in order to remove the fan assembly. So this is underneath the vehicle. And this is a good time to drain the old radiator of fluid. Use a drain pan of some sort. Then I used a small piece of tubing so that the radiator fluid wouldn't be dripping all over all of the undercarriage to direct it into the drain pan. A 22mm socket works well to loosen the plastic valve that's there. Otherwise it can be stuck. Turn that out until the radiator fluid starts to leak out of the radiator. And then wait until all the fluid has drained out. While that's finishing up, we can remove the radiator hose on the top. Use a vice grips to remove the hose clamp. And then pull it off of the radiator. Next, remove the two hoses on the driver's side of the radiator. Use the pliers to remove the hose clamps and then pull them off of the radiator. Try to keep those tipped up because the fluid will leak out of those. Take those two hoses out of the clamp that holds them in place against the radiator. And put them up someplace where they won't drip. Then remove the electrical connector. There are some zip ties holding the electrical portion to the fan. Use a diagonal cutters to cut those. Then remove the overflow tube from the radiator fill port area. And at this point, the fan assembly can be removed, along with the radiator overflow reservoir. Next, use a vice grips to remove the hose clamp on the bottom radiator port and wiggle that loose. This is that other Phillips screw on the other side. I was able to get this side loose without stripping it. Underneath the radiator is a 12mm bolt. Remove that from the driver's side. It's holding the radiator onto that bottom support bracket. And similarly on the passenger side is another 12mm bolt. Remove that one as well. And now the radiator can be pulled up, so that top metal bracket that I was unable to get loose from the passenger side that was stripped made it so that we just had to pry that bracket up in order to get the old radiator out. Here you can see the portion of the radiator where the leak occurred. This is the old radiator once it has been removed. This is the area where the leak was. And this is the lower bracket where the new radiator will sit. You can clean that area up a little bit. And you can see I just had to pry this upper bracket up. It was still attached on the passenger side there where it was stripped, but you're able to bend it up enough in order to get the new radiator in. I ordered the new radiator, here it is, next to the old one. So the next step is to slide the new radiator into place, into the lower metal bracket. And get the electrical cables arranged and the other connections. Again, they're prying up the upper portion of that bracket in order to get the new radiator in there. It takes a little bit of shimmying in order to get the radiator positioned properly. This is how it looks at the bottom in the lower bracket. Make sure that the radiator drain valve is closed. Sometimes the new ones come with the radiator drain valve open. And here the new radiator is in the correct position. And so we can install the lower bolt, the 12mm bolt, through the lower bracket up into the radiator. It can be really tricky to get this lined up properly, and in some of the videos that I saw, people just didn't bother attaching this lower bolt. So it took some time, but eventually you could get it in. Once everything's aligned properly, that's the approximate spacing. I had to do a little bit of adjustment there in order to get the top portion to line up properly for the 12mm bolts in the top upper bracket. Then tighten those up. And the driver's side as well. I put a little bit of anti-seize on those in case I ever have to do this again. Tighten them up with a 12mm wrench or socket. Again, just looking at the amount of gap that you'll end up with after the new radiator is installed on the lower bracket. Next, put in the fan assembly and line it up with the holes in the upper and lower brackets and install the 10mm bolts. 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. This is on the bottom, the 10mm bolts tightened up, holding the fan assembly in place. Looking from underneath, and on top, tightening up those 10mm bolts. Next, connect the lower radiator hose to the port on the bottom. Force that on and then use a vice grips to put the hose clamp back on. Similarly on the top port, push the radiator hose all the way on until it's nice and snug and then put the hose clamp back into place. Make sure it's nice and snug, no leaks. Next, you can reattach the transmission fluid hoses. Make sure you don't swap those. Put the hose clamps back on using pliers. Next, fit those 2 tubes into the metal bracket. You can now begin reconnecting the electrical connections on the back of the fan assembly and feeding those over the top of the radiator to the horn. For the overflow tube, clip that into place and reinstall it near the radiator fluid cap. There's no pipe clamp on this particular tube. Next, the front support beam, after connecting the electrical connectors, can be put back in. I didn't bother disconnecting the hood release cable, but you could do that and it might make things a little bit easier. And now install the top metal bracket. It has a couple of guide pins with a rubber grommet that fits over the top of the upper bracket on the radiator. Make sure those are in place. And then reinstall the hood latch. On the front support bracket, reinstall the 10mm bolt. And the electrical connectors to the horns if you forgot to do that previously. Next, reinstall the 10mm bolts holding the upper metal bracket on. Make sure everything's lined up properly. And install the 10mm bolts for the hood latch. Next, reinstall the air hose and feed that into place. And then it's held on by a 10mm bolt on the front. Then reattach the plastic air tube to 10mm bolts, hold that in place. Next, reinstall the plastic clips holding the protective shield in place. And now we're ready to introduce the antifreeze. I highly recommend getting the Toyota antifreeze. And this is the full strength, so we'll put half a gallon of the full strength fluid in and then half a gallon of distilled water. Just make sure you put in a 50-50 mixture if you're using the full strength. If you're using the pre-diluted, just go ahead and add it. Here's the distilled water being added. I added a half gallon of the radiator fluid, full strength, and then a half gallon of the distilled water. And then I mixed up another 50-50 batch of distilled water and radiator fluid to top off the system. Make sure you fill the reservoir and then fill at the radiator fill cap as well. Go ahead and start the vehicle and then top off as necessary. I hope you found this video helpful. Until next time.